My email use was widely known in the department, throughout the government, and I have provided all of my work-related emails, and I've asked that they be made public.
Hillary Clinton has said she has handed over all of her emails and said she wants them to be part of the official record. However, a transcript of a deposition from Cheryl Mills, Clinton's chief of staff at the State Department and one-time personal attorney, shows that Clinton and her staff brushed off concerns about her private email server and what would happen if she were required to turn over her emails under public records law. Fox News' chief intelligence correspondent Catherine Herridge joins me now. Catherine, what does the Cheryl Mills deposition tell you about any knowledge or complicity on the part of Clinton's inner circle, at least with respect to Ms. Mills, in terms of Clinton's adamancy on using that private email server?
Well, it's an excellent question. Based on the transcript, which is nearly 300 pages in length, and based on the fact that Cheryl Mills had 7 attorneys at that deposition, 4 representing the interests of the state and justice departments and 3 representing her interests, every single question that related to the installation of the server and its management by the Clinton IT specialist Brian Pagliano, who since has an immunity deal with the Justice Department as part of the ongoing FBI criminal investigation, that they sought under every circumstance to block any information that related to its setup and what efforts, if any, were made to retain the records and shield them from FOIA, Judge.
Just so the folks watching us know about this, the deposition was not taken in either of the FBI investigations of her.
Correct.
It was taken in one of the many Freedom of Information Act cases which ordinary folks have filed against the State Department.
Correct.
And Cheryl Mills, pursuant to the instructions of her lawyer, refused to ask the most telling questions. Are the lawyers who asked the questions going to go back to the judge to seek a clarification and a redeposition of Cheryl Mills and an order to her to answer those questions which she refused to answer?
Well, for some context, it's highly unusual, as you know, for a federal judge to grant what's called discovery in a Freedom of Information Act lawsuit.
Right.
Second of all, Judicial Watch told us today that they may well go back to the federal judge in this case, Emmett Sullivan, here in Washington, D.C., and seek to compel the answers to those questions from Cheryl Mills. So for a layperson, they're going to go back to the judge, say her answers were not forthcoming and they were unnecessarily blocked by her attorneys, and they want the judge to force her to answer very basic questions about how the IT specialist Brian Pagliano set up the server, whether he was working for the Clintons at the time or simply for the State Department, and what effort, if any, was made to shield these records from the records, the open records laws or the Freedom of Information Act.
All right, all of this comes on the heels of the Inspector General's report, which was very damning to Mrs. Clinton and to the folks around her. Is there a perception in law enforcement or intelligence in Washington, D.C., that this Inspector General's report has moved the ball forward at all in terms of a potential indictment of Mrs. Clinton?
Well, an intelligence source who we've been working with for the better part of a year as part of our ongoing reporting on the FBI's criminal probe said that the Inspector General's report is significant because, in their opinion, it ups the pressure and the likelihood that the Justice Department will be forced to bring an indictment against Mrs. Clinton and some of her associates, because for the first time it publicly clarified what the Department of State rules were for handling emails, in this case, national defense information, that the rules were broken, and that this sensitive information was moved outside of secure government channels onto this unsecured personal email server of Mrs. Clinton. And I don't have to tell you, that starts to lay the groundwork and the basis for a criminal charge under 18 U.S.C. 793, which is the gross negligence statute under the Espionage Act.
Catherine Herridge, always a pleasure. Thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Coming up, the economic crisis in Venezuela continues to worsen, and now the Organization of American States has called an emergency meeting to see if the country has violated democratic principles. You ready for this? We got the details next.